Antonio Hammond is a 49-year-old recovering heroin addict. He used to be homeless, living in the streets of Baltimore, sleeping in abandoned buildings where he said the rats were fierce. Antonio would break into cars or steal copper pipes from coming buildings, all in order to fund his drug use. The Huffington Post told his story in an article published on April 1st. In it, he claimed that all he wanted to do was to get high. He forgot how to eat, and then he forgot how to bathe. Heroin took Antonio's life away from him. Both 18 grand and a program called Christopher's Place, Catholic Charities of Baltimore was able to turn Antonio's life around. Today, Antonio's clean of drugs. He works as a custodian, making $13 an hour. He pays taxes, he shares an apartment, he even owns a car. But the greatest gift Catholic Charities has given to Antonio is a chance to talk and reconnect with all 9 of his children. After his years of drug abuse, his life now is a reality he may have never thought possible. Antonio is a success of an effort we've come to call the war on poverty. But such stories are rare. For the vast majority of others, whether they be heroinless heroin addicts or just families down in hard times, the war on poverty is a little more than a failure, a quagmire of governmental programs. Currently, 46.5 million Americans are currently living in poverty. That's 20% of the nation's children. This is despite the fact that the federal government spent $1.03 trillion on welfare programs in 2011 alone. This is coming from the rather stunned Senate Budget Committee last year. Clearly, this isn't because a nation doesn't care or can't afford to win the war on poverty. It's because of something else. It's because we have yet to understand poverty itself, leaving our fight against it misdirected at best. We're going to look at the 2 main reasons the war on poverty has failed, their effects on the surrounding community, and finally what steps we ourselves can do to help our neighbors in poverty. On paper, our welfare programs look good. In 2011, as the Washington Times article of last year reports, the vast majority of our welfare spending is allocated to some 80 quintessential programs. These programs include cash assistance to needy families and utility assistance, food stamps and healthcare, according to welfareinfo.org. It's hard to imagine poverty existing in a country in which so much has been invested in the success of the disadvantaged. But that's on paper. These programs, while obviously vital, miss something huge, and that's cohesiveness, that's coordination. This is the first fatal flaw in our tactic to win the war on poverty. When President Lyndon Johnson declared the war on poverty in 1964, Reverend Martin Luther King criticized the effort as piecemeal. The individual programs are well constructed, but they don't work together. So a child growing up in poverty may receive food stamps, but he may still grow up in a dysfunctional home. Or he may receive family counseling, but never receive any job training, and is therefore doomed to be unemployed. Poverty is insidious. It will find its way in the lives of the disadvantaged through the smallest cracks in our efforts. So we have to attack all the causes of poverty at the same time and never let up. Otherwise, our efforts do little more than tread water. Secondly, our welfare programs are misdirected. Dr. Stephanie Bell and Dr. Randall Ray from the University of Missouri published a paper in January 2004 arguing that the war on poverty was based on a fundamental misconception. They argued that while the Johnson administration wanted to address the core causes of poverty, which they saw as lack of education and job training, they actually missed the largest cause altogether. They claimed it's not a lack of schoolwork or job training seminars that causes poverty, but rather simply the surrounding economy. Welfare programs to this day focus on changing the poor themselves, often ignoring the bad neighborhoods, the dearth of opportunity, and the chronic poverty that goes along with that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported unemployment rate doubled from 5 to 10% during the 2008-2009 financial crisis. It's no surprise then that after the recession, record numbers of Americans began using public assistance. 148 million in 2010, according to the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. It begs the question, what good does job training programs do when there are no opportunities in which to use the job training? The effect of this welfare system is nothing short of catastrophic. Because the programs we do have target the poor instead of the economy, a child growing up in poverty will receive food stamps but still live without opportunities. Because he doesn't have those opportunities, the community doesn't grow, meaning his kids don't have opportunities, meaning the need for even more programs. And so he's placed in a piecemeal system that, in the end, doesn't accomplish much of anything. He's still unemployed. And because it costs so much just to tread water, the American people and Congress are attempting to cut welfare spending altogether. On September 19th, the New York Times reported that the House of Representatives passed a bill proposing to cut food stamp program in half, which will only increase poverty, making neighborhoods more and more dangerous for the next generation, who ends up in an even worse place than before. While the war on poverty continually loses ground, our economy suffers. Through comprehensive research, poverty has been shown to lead to health problems, poor education, and higher crime rates, all of which cause unemployment. A report by the Government Accountability Office in 2007 tells us that poor neighborhoods have higher rates of chronic illness, disease, disabilities, and that children living in poverty are 4 times as likely to drop out of high school. An article published in the Journal of Law and Economics in 2001 tells us that higher rates of unemployment lead to increases in crimes such as vandalism. For these reasons, economic recovery in poor neighborhoods is slower and poverty more difficult to escape. Nearly 50 million Americans are grappling with this reality. The drain that creates in our economy is too big to bear, but more importantly, we owe to those who are underprepared, to those who have too few opportunities to find quality and employment. We owe to make those opportunities happen, and to that we have a responsibility. Let's change our strategy and win this war on poverty. There are 3 steps that we can take. First, we have to address our piecemeal approach to poverty. The fight on poverty is spread over too many government agencies to be efficient or effective. Across our programs, we are currently addressing all of the causes. Now we must combine them into a centralized system that serves each and every person who lives in poverty, who sees the opportunities to achieve the lives they deserve. This will not only end poverty for millions of Americans, but would also cost less in the end game. This won't happen on its own, so make your voice heard. Call or write your member of Congress. Tell him or her about how our current programs are disorganized and misdirected, about the vicious cycle those in poverty live through and its massive drain on our economy. And then tell them about Catholic Charities. Talk about how a few well-coordinated programs can turn a life around at a fraction of the cost of what we spend today. Don't be turned off by partisan bickering in election season. This is a plan that stretches across all political divides. Antonio's story has demonstrated how it will successfully lift people out of poverty, end crime, increase employment, and still cost less. Finally, simply get involved. Get involved in the programs like Catholic Charities that follow those that are helping each and every step of the way. Don't get involved just in the programs that have proven to help families get by. That 18 grand which bought Antonio's life back was all donated. Through the generosity of the community, not only was Antonio able to leave his desperate past behind him, but Catholic Charities and their cohesive approach received global attention. The success stories that we make possible with our donations are the marketing and advertising these nonprofits need so desperately to grow. By donating and volunteering, you're ultimately leading others to do the same. This afternoon, we've looked at the reasons the infamous war on poverty has failed, and the effects of those failures on our entire community. With the highest poverty levels in nearly 50 years, there are places in America where hope simply doesn't exist. While the problem is inherent in both poverty and our work to end it run deep and are constantly evolving, we've studied them for nearly 50 years now, and we can make it move forward. Only in this process of continually attempting and perfecting ideas is Antonio Hammond's story even possible. So let's take the next step. Let's create a more understanding, a more cohesive, a more caring approach to our welfare system. Let's get out of the trenches and let's rally behind this war on poverty.